This computer. Okay. Hello, Peter. Thank you for
Hello, how are
being
you?
here. Good, thank you. I'm very excited.
Me
This is
too.
the second time we're doing an interview. Um, Now we would like to start having some conversations with different graduates about what insight is and to tell us a little bit of their experience. So I would love, first of all, to know a little bit about you, maybe what do you do, where do you live, and when did you take your first insight?
Right. So I was born and raised in Venezuela, in Caracas. Out of my first 24 years of life, I lived 21 of them in Venezuela. And in two different occasions, I lived in the United States. Once as a child when I learned English, and then also as a teenager. So I grew up multiculturally, let's say, between Latin American and North American. Um, I took Insight One at 16 years of age. Back in those days, there was no teen insight in Latin America. So they made an exception for me to be able to take it. My mom had signed up, and I was going through a search for what I would now call meaning of life, or the meaning of my life. And she said, "Hey, I signed up for this thing. Do you want to participate?" And I said yes, and she gave me her spot. And and it was a really very impactful experience for me, and transformational in many different ways, and set me on a very fulfilling, adventurous, and I would say successful life, which I'm still currently very much engaged in.
So I'm taking that's been a bit since that happened.
A bit
Yeah.
has happened, yes. Many things have happened. I've
Um,
lived in Argentina, went to the United States, been in Mexico, lived in three cities in Mexico so far over the last 20 plus years. And I became an insight facilitator when I was 20 years old. I started facilitating children's seminars in many countries and in several languages. And eventually I started facilitating teen seminars and adult trainings. And I've had the honor to be a facilitator for insight seminars from Punta Arenas in the southern tip of Chile, all the way to Omsk in Siberia, close to the polar circle, the North Pole, and from California to Cyprus and Israel, and soon in New Zealand, which is a big honor, and I'm very excited about as well.
that's exciting. That's very exciting. Thank you for that.
Yes, yes.
Um, Just moving on to the questions about the seminar, you did mention that it was very impactful. Did you have any expectations before attending?
Mm. Um, so a little bit of my personal context is that at 16, I found myself having everything a 16-year-old could want. And this after having had a very challenging childhood. So my childhood was quite challenging in terms of my parents' divorce and moving from one country into the other, and how my parents handled the divorce, etc. And but at 16, I had it all pretty much. And I knew I had a good life, but I also felt intuitively that something else was missing, something more profound or meaningful, or and for some reason I said, what if I'm a 35-year-old old man? Because when you're 16, you think that 35 years old is old. And I said, what if I'm 35 years old and I still have this feeling? Or worse, what if I'm 90 years old at the end of my life and I'm a multimillionaire and I have great grandkids and I have everything, but still having this feeling like something is missing? And that scared me. That shook me, right? So I said, okay, I gotta figure this out. I went to see a therapist, and and I walked out of there thinking, okay, no, it's not a therapy thing. And this is when my mother invited me to a guest event, an insight guest event, and which was the night before the seminar began. And she asked me, what do you think? You want to go for it? I said, yeah. So in terms of expectations, I really had no expectations. because not even my mother had took it. So it wasn't even her saying, "Oh, this is amazing." So most people that come to the seminar show up without really knowing what they're there for. That's the one thing that Insight Seminar has that is quite particular. Insight Seminars delivers more than what is promised. Almost all seminars, are about financial success or find the love of your life or fix your relationships or, build a business or, and most people have a sense of what that's about. You know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I want to make more money, or yeah, I want to, put, put my career on the fast track, or I want to have an amazing romantic partnership, right? So people relate to that. But what Insight offers and gives, guaranteed, is something that very few people have had an experience of. And that's why when people invite other people to take the seminar, they say, "Oh, this is an amazing thing. You have to go take Insight." And people say, "Yeah, tell me more about it." For sure.
It is so personal.
And people say, "Just trust me. Shut up. Just go. Just sign up. Don't even ask the question." Because it's very hard to put into tangible terms for somebody that has not had the experience. It's
Yeah.
like I'm thinking just now, like as if somebody that's their whole life has lived in, someplace like, I don't know, the South Pole or something, where it's snowy and cold the whole time. And then all of a sudden they have an experience of vacationing in the Caribbean beaches in the tropics, right? And they come
Mhm.
back and it's like, "Oh, you got to sign up. You got to go take that trip." And people say, "Yeah, tell me what it's about." Like, I can't tell them about flip-flops and, and sandy beaches. They won't
You have to
just
be.
just go. Just trust me and
It's like a
go.
picture doesn't always really give.
Convey.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
It
this.
doesn't
Yeah,
communicate the experience. Yeah.
exactly. So, drilling a little bit more into your personal experience,
Yeah.
without spoiling,
Yeah.
what was the most memorable experience for you during the seminar? Is there like something that really was fundamental to you saying, yeah, I want more?
Yeah. So I have different answers. Okay. The first, I think the major impact that the seminar had in my life had to do with me because of some of the experiences that I had growing up. I didn't like my dad very much. Okay. And I knew I didn't like him. But what I didn't know is how dragging that with me was keeping me back from being able to fully experience and enjoy my life. Right. So I thought I didn't even think about it, but it seemed to me like those were separate things. So releasing and letting go of the baggage, of the heaviness, of hurt feelings and resentment and judgments and everything was it's like a champagne cork, the shooting out of the bottle, right? It's like all this pressure just
Mm,
releasing and experiencing uh, an indescribable amount of joy and peace and stress relief. So that was, the first most obvious thing. That was it. The next day, I invited my dad to go lunch, and we had a heart to heart, and it was transformational. It changed our relationship from that moment onwards, you know. And the second thing that's part of the answer to your question had to do with me knowing at a deeper than intellectual level that my life needed to be about something very meaningful, you know. It had to be around helping other people make their lives better. That's a very personal thing.
thank you.
Um, and
Yeah.
I don't want to come off like I'm a saint or anything like that, because that's not the case. Um, and then the third thing that was also very impactful, it was the first time in my life that I got feedback about um, about, I received feedback about some unique qualities that I had, positive qualities that I had. I was able to see them. I was able to see my positive qualities in a way that I'd never noticed before.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are
That's
the three things that come to mind as a question to your answer, as an answer to your question.
Thank you, Peter. No, that's fantastic. Thank you very much for opening up to this space and to us. It's been really good to have you. And well, we'll see you in October when you are down this
Yes,
way.
I am super excited, and I'm looking forward also to our upcoming events. There's going to be some people that will have an opportunity to talk to them about the seminar and just give them a taste of insight as well.
Yeah. Cool. No, thank you very much, Peter.
My
Bye.
honor. Thank
I'll
you.
just
Bye.